Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead Aherne. Today's top stories: businesses are being urged to be cautious of invoice redirect fraud. Companies in the southeast, west and border area stand to be among the hardest hit from COVID-19. The Taoiseach's indicated hairdressers and beauty salons may open sooner than July the 20th. And in sport, Michael O'Connor has returned to Linfield from Waterford FC. Gardaí and Waterford are urging businesses to be extra cautious if any of their suppliers ask to change their bank details. It's after a local company making personal protective equipment for the HSE was defrauded of over $74,000 after depositing the money into a bogus bank account. The company had agreed to pay a deposit for a machine to a legitimate company in China, but then received fraudulent emails purporting to be from the Chinese company and transferred the money. They were notified by their bank of the invoice redirect fraud on Monday, and after liaising with Gardaí, the money was returned. Sergeant Brendan Roach says businesses are reopening and they're anxious to get their companies back operating.
And trying to get supplies from wherever they can get them. So this invoice redirection fraud is where somebody, a fraudster, sends an email purporting to be one of their legitimate suppliers. Now, the email would normally contain a request for a change of bank account details. So if the injured party or the victim business then changes their account details and sends on the next payment, it goes directly into the fraudster's account.
He says more often than not the money is moved immediately and is gone forever.
Always ask why this company is changing their bank details. Ring the number that you have for your legitimate supplier, not a number that's provided on the email, and make sure that they are verifying that the change in bank details are correct. Always check the email address provided because you might see some subtle changes. Obviously, check the IBAN. If in doubt, there's no rush on it. Delay the transfer of funds until you can get to the legitimate supplier and make sure that the account is a genuine account.
Companies in the southeast, west and border area stand to be among the hardest hit from COVID-19, according to Chambers Ireland. In a survey of members, it shows 1 in 4 firms are expecting a 70% drop in earnings over the next 3 months. Those that reopened in Phase 1 report a fall in activity of less than half compared to the same time last year. Ian Talbot from Chambers Ireland says more help is needed to get them out of the current situation.
We've had an economic mini ice age, and we now need to unfreeze the economy. The impact across the board for almost all companies on revenue is very dramatic, and we now need a viable set of businesses with viable support from government to re-establish our economy on a sound footing.
Proposed temperature readers for retail areas of Waterford City are not designed to stop people from entering shops. The CEO of the Waterford-based company, who's developed the technology, says thermal readers will give people more confidence and safety. Plans for 3 public temperature readers were announced yesterday as part of Waterford's COVID-19 economic recovery plan. Waterford Council say there's no requirement for shoppers to interact with the thermal imaging equipment. Speaking to Damien Tiernan on Daisha Today, Ger Finnan, CEO of DD Total Solutions, says the aim is to make people feel safer.
This is not about stopping people going anywhere. It's about giving people a little bit more confidence, and even the comfort for yourself of walking up to one of these machines and saying, I'm going to take my temperature there and see what it's like. And it will give you a temperature and it will give you a ticket to sit. And grand. You may never go into a shop, but at least you've walked up and you've had your temperature taken, because there is trepidation with some people when they approach a shop as to whether or not they'll get in if there's temperature being taken.
The chief executive of the company, which manages 2 car parks in Waterford City, says they suffered a 97% drop in usage over the past 3 months. City Square Car Park and the Clock Tower have joined the local authority and the Port of Waterford in offering a second hour free for June and July. Raymond Pearce is the chief executive of iPark Parking Services.
The offer from iPark and from the owners of the car park, both City Square and the Keys, is that we are offering 2 hours parking for the price of 1, starting this Thursday. We would hope to continue with this offer through the months of June and July, and we will review it towards the middle of July to see how it's going.
He says their car park at City Square remained open throughout the pandemic.
The likes of City Square was open because we have done stores was open. The chemist was open, Mulligan's chemist. But people couldn't drive outside certain limits, so the usage was negligible. But we were obliged to keep it open. So if somebody wanted to use the car park, they were available. But I have to say, a 97% drop in numbers in the car parks over the past 3 months.
A Waterford TD says confusing messages about the wearing of masks are coming from the likes of the World Health Organisation and the ECDC. Matt Shanahan told the Dáil's COVID committee that he previously asked for masks to be made mandatory. He says we should all get behind a single message and strategy.
Is there any opportunity to try and get a consensus amongst the senior medical and policy makers? I think there's been a lot of confusion. I, as a member of the regional group, back in March asked for masks to be made mandatory where social distance wasn't possible, and at the time it was rubbish, and now here we are later on and we're talking to people about making their own masks. So I think that one of the issues that has come up in recent days is this confusion in messaging, and I think we all have a responsibility to try and get behind a single message and strategy and try and promote it.
Director of the National Virus Reference Laboratory, Dr Cillian de Gascon, says the evidence comes down to the type of mask and the setting in which you're using it.
And that's the problem with the sort of the cloth masks or the homemade masks that you allude to, is that the strength of evidence for those isn't fantastic, but we still recommend it in a setting where physical distancing and good respiratory etiquette cannot be maintained. So it is still an advice. I think there's always a reluctance to make things mandatory as a first port of call, but I would accept the observation that the uptake probably hasn't been as large as we would have expected in the last couple of weeks.
The Taoiseach has indicated hairdressers and beauty salons may open sooner than July 20th. Leo Varadkar confirmed the government's working on plans to bring forward their reopening, but says it depends on coronavirus remaining under control. Waterford's Danielle Kennedy, president of the Irish Hairdressers Federation, is welcoming the news.
Us at the Irish Hairdressers Federation, and I'm sure the whole industry in Ireland, were absolutely delighted to see on Taoiseach's comments this morning. We have always said that we are one of the industries that are very well equipped to operate within the government return to work safely protocols, and we're very, very eager to get back to work in a very, very safe manner.
A programme for government might not be agreed until the weekend. Sources involved in the talks believe there's still a few days left in a process they hoped would conclude tomorrow. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe reports.
Journalists, staff and politicians from all parties in Leinster House have been gazing up towards Agriculture House all week, looking for white smoke from the government formation talks. Some involved had hoped to have an agreement signed off on by now to begin trying to sell it to their parties. The deadlines being talked about have changed every day, with the latest talk warning an agreement might not be reached until Saturday. The Dáil will spend most of today debating climate targets, and that's one of the key sticking points in the talks. The 7% annual greenhouse gas emissions target and agriculture are on the agenda again today. Talks are expected to intensify, with this week's deadline looming large. Lots of the text of the deal needs final approval from the parties, and sources in Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens are all telling different stories about how long that might take. Sean Defoe, Leinster House.
A cycle challenge to raise awareness and funds for suicide prevention charities continuing in Waterford. People are being asked to complete 20 kilometres before June 21st to donate on WLRFM.com and to nominate 3 people on social media. It's in aid of Suicide or Survive. Mary Power from Rathgormack lost her sister Sharon and her brother-in-law to suicide. She says the cycle is about more than fundraising.
The importance of it is not just the raising money, which of course is important to support the services, but the raising awareness is so important that people understand that there are people out there who know how they feel, who maybe have been through it and come out the other side of it, or have family members who have come out the other side of it. It's, the raising awareness is as important as the raising of funds.
Make the smart play with Virgin Media. Check out their smart home packages at Virgin Media, George's Street, Waterford.
Sponsors of the sports news on WLR.
Starting with soccer, where Waterford FC striker Michael O'Connor has confirmed his tenure at the club has come to an end. He broke the news on Twitter last night. O'Connor was on loan to the Blues for the second time from Linfield, with the FAI due to release details of their financial package for League of Ireland clubs to play behind closed doors tomorrow. Blues supporters are now asking, will O'Connor's departure add to the club's problems? The other on loan players have also returned to their parent clubs. The Merseyside Derby will be held behind closed closed doors at Everton's Goodison Park when the Premier League season resumes across Channel. There had been fears fans might get tried to congregate outside, with Liverpool having the chance to clinch the title against their rivals. But a safety certificate's now been granted, meaning it won't be played at a neutral venue on June 21st. In a statement, the Merseyside police have urged supporters to stay at home on the day of the match due to fears over any further spread of COVID-19. A County Waterford show jumper is in the running to be named Waterford's greatest sporting hero. John Leddingham from Clashmore is on the final list of 25 compiled by a panel of experts. The competition's in conjunction with Flavins and people can vote on WLORFM.com. Kieran O'Connor says John Leddingham represented Ireland 60 times.
Captain John Leddingham, as he was during his career, but what a fantastic ambassador for the world of show jumping. And really, in the early 90s, John Leddingham really was in the top echelons in with Eddie Mack and Paul Dara. He represented his country 60 times in Nations Cup, which is a fantastic achievement. Was part of 5 winning Aggie Can teams, which even getting on the Aggie Can team, he competed more, but was on 5 winning Aggie Can teams. He also has the distinction of winning the famous Hickstead Derby, not once, twice, but 3 times, which is brilliant. And then, of course, Aachen, Calgary, and indeed Rome as well.
Sports news on WLR is thanks to Virgin Media Waterford. WLR asks you to stay safe by keeping your distance. Our next bulletin is at 2.